So, firstly, let me welcome you on behalf of the board, the Leadership Circle, and Daniel Stockton, who is actually our Executive Director and is in Poland today. And so he inked me in to fill in for him. So welcome to our program. The program is, we're going to have a little introduction, which is what I'm doing right now. Bert is going to walk in and probably take the microphone from me as he gets here. And he's going to do the presentation. And then we will have, at the end of the program, about 15 minutes discussion of what SOCAN is doing and what other climate activist groups in the area are doing. So that's the program for this evening. And we should be able to get you out by 7:30. And isn't it appropriate that the program today is on misinformation and disinformation? since you're missing it. Okay, first off, the land acknowledgement. As an organization based in the Rogue Valley, we gather here on the occupied land of the Latgawa, Shasta, and Takelma people. In the 1850s, tribes were displaced due to the gold rush and colonization of southern Oregon. This brought war, starvation, genocide, and erasure of the local tribes. In 1853, the Rogue River Treaty was signed, where 3 tribes were forced to cede their land in the upper Rogue Valley and relocate to temporary reservations, the closest one being located at Table Rock. We recognize that we are on stolen land and will work to protect our community, the climate, and environment for future generations. Oregon is home to 9 federally recognized tribes. However, there are many more tribes that do not hold this status of recognition. We hope that with this land acknowledgement, you will research the land you reside on, work with us to honor the original caretakers and to protect our environment and community in the work we are doing. And on the bottom there, you can see a little link to native-land.california, which Daniel has given us, and it contains some fascinating maps of the tribes. Okay, what I would like you to do, as we generally try to do as we're starting the program, is a little icebreaker, if you like. And so your charge is to find somebody that preferably you don't know and introduce yourself and exchange this information. How confident are you that you can detect misinformation? So, face somebody, introduce yourself, and have a little conversation about it.
Over here. Hi.
I'm Alan. We can still do this.
Absolutely. It's been a while. Yeah, so
So much of it. You initiated it.
although I got a bond.
Okay, if you haven't changed sides, please do so. Okay, I'm gonna gather you together if I can. Pull you away from your newfound friend, if possible. And I would like to introduce this speaker. I'm guessing most folks who live in the area are familiar with Bert Etling's work. He, as you probably know, was with the Medford Mail Tribune, with the Ashland Tidings, and the Ashland edition, was it, Bert, of the Medford Tribune?
The Ashland Tidings, which was owned by the Mail Tribune.
Yeah. And for a while, in the middle of that, Kathy and I knew him as the editor of the Applegator. I think, were you doing that voluntarily?
No, it was a contract position.
Okay, good deal. So we are very delighted that Bert agreed to come and talk to us about this problem of misinformation and disinformation, which is all around us. And as I mentioned a moment ago, how appropriate that he should be doing it on the night of Trump's State of the Union. So without more ado, I'll pass the podium to Bert, and he's not going to use slides. Going to do it off the cuff or whatever.
Thank you. I'm gonna sit down because I'm gonna be talking up here for a little while. He stole my line. I was gonna say, well, your first good move in avoiding misinformation was being here tonight instead of watching the State of the Union. I've got, Alan was gracious enough to give me this invitation, and spoiler alert, I don't have the answers. I do have a lot of questions, so we can certainly talk about those. And the importance of it is something. So I'm going to vary between talking off the cuff and referring to various notes here. I've got Alan's news release. And it is so important. We got the Jefferson quote: "Informed citizenry is at the heart of a dynamic democracy." Well, I'm glad I've got a little bit of time because I can ramble. I'll weave. Let's avoid that. There's an excellent book. His name eludes me right now, by a Harvard law professor that I read a couple of years ago, and she made the case that information was so important to the founding fathers that they built a subsidy for journalism into the Constitution. Actually, it appears. And this is the postal subsidy. And there were people that argued for making it completely free to mail you newspapers, which was the state of the art, the information superhighway at the time. And in their wisdom, they decided to do a subsidy instead of an outright thing. But they understood that if we're going to have a democracy instead of a kingship, that we needed to have access to information so we can make informed decisions and select the people. It's a republic, it's not a democracy. Heard that in middle school, but so we can select the people that will make, that give even more information that again needs to be reliable to make those decisions about how we do what we're doing. Alan talks about forces of darkness. Well, there's certainly some of that. And we're at a critical point. This conspiracy hoax is driven by misinformation and disinformation. What's happened is, with the kind of an economic issue going on the journalism side, that it's allowed this vacuum of reliable information for this misinformation to come in. And it can just be as relatively benign as Facebook wanting people to stick on their platform longer so they can sell more ads, or it can be as here's your forces of darkness of the Russians wanting to change the outcome of the 2016 election. And then you've got server farms in Moscow or whatever that are pumping out this vile that fills up platforms like Twitter or Facebook or Nextdoor, go down the list. And that's kind of an accident or an economic tide that opened the door for that misinformation to sweep in. You think about newspapers and the web coming along in 1990 or so, and people starting to get on board by 1995 and booming along. The peak year for newspapers actually was 2005. Just pretty straightforwardly that as peak employment, peak income, and then some things that had been building up until then really went into effect, and this would be Facebook and Google with the advertising thing, Craigslist taking away the classified ads, and then 2008 the near depression, what do we call that thing? Then really put the nail in the coffin of newspapers. So they went from 150 billion to 50 billion a year in revenue, and this is where you see the layoffs. 3/5 of journalists have lost their jobs in the last 20 years. And this is an economic thing. And newspapers went from a model where they're getting 80% of their income from advertising, people trying to sell mattresses or cars or whatever, to and about 20% to subscriptions, to not having that revenue. And so they laid off reporters because that's where most of their expenses were. And now the print editions are going along because it's so darn expensive to do print. And, we looked at that with Ashland.news when we started, and it cost $250,000 a year to put out a weekly, and it wouldn't come back to us, and we would get more advertising, but it wouldn't be that much. As much as there's been this wave of social media and other things coming in the last 20 years, we're really going to get a tsunami now because it's so easy to generate this content from AI, artificial intelligence. Okay. If I had done a slideshow, this would have been the first slide. Artificial intelligence, friend or foe? People have been talking. I've been doing this for quite a while. I started in '82. I went out for a little while in the newspaper business, and but as early as the early aughts, 2000, early 2000s, I was reading about the LA Times looking at having, they didn't call it artificial intelligence, to have a computer programs write earthquake briefs, because there's a lot of earthquakes, and there's a 3.2, and it's 8 miles northwest of Asilomar at a depth of 3 miles, and expected to be felt over a radius of 120 miles, and those things, boom, you get used to writing those briefs in Southern California. And you can write a program to do that. You can write a program, take a baseball box score and write a story about it. You can do a quarterly earnings report and write a program to do that, because they're really, really formulaic and it's, friend or foe. It's a way to automate these routine tasks, and that frees you up to do more sophisticated things. So I don't want anything to do with AI, but I recognize that in certain limited circumstances that it's of use. And I think that what we need to do as an industry with journalism is to label it and be transparent and clear and say what we're doing with it and where we're doing it. I don't think there's enough of that going on. There's a local website that, okay, it's Medford Alert, and he's been running press releases for years, and now I looked at it the other day, and there's this in-depth story about Ashland City Hall and that whole issue, and there's no byline on it, and there's no sourcing. This is not from a news release or a reporter, and so I don't know, but I'm gonna check and find out, was that AI? Where'd you get this story from? It always makes me suspicious when there's not an attribution, a source, when you don't know what the source is. And again, spoiler alert, and I was so pleased, Alan, when I came in and you're saying, you need to know who you're talking to, where you're getting your information from. And this talking to each other and knowing who your source is at the end of the day what's going to be really important, and guide your trust in your news sources. Okay. I could have had AI write this.
Would we have known?
Yeah. I think you might have known. The Ashland City Hall story I was looking at, there was a thing in there, and this is what happens with AI. It says, the Ashland City Hall was built in 1988. Yeah. They mean 1888, if anything. But but was that almost made me think it was more like an error that a person would make. AI should, get the historical data, but they might have done remodeling in 1988 and it messed it up, and they're only messing up at 2% of the thing, but it might be a key part of the story. I got a call a year ago now. There was this nurses' strike that included Providence, I think, and we ran a story about it, actually one that we picked up from Oregon Capital Chronicle, and I got a call. There's a mistake in the story, you need to fix it. I looked at the story, there's no mistake in it, and not the one that they said. And I said, what are they doing? And then I looked at the Ashland Tidings website, and we'll talk more about that. Because they had gone out of business. Why is there an Ashland Tidings website? Well, it has to do with AI. So I looked at that, and the AI that they were using had scraped stories. We had done a story, and the Oregon Capital Chronicle done a story, and the Oregonian done a story, and they'd taken all those and spat out something without crediting any of it, of course. But they missed the nuance where Medford hadn't approved the contract, and it was like they were presenting it as, they voted against it. No, it was during it. That's when it happened. It was that February storm we had last year. They couldn't vote because the weather was bad, and so they put off the vote. But they were presenting it in this AI story as if it had been not approved, as if it had been rejected. So that's a kind of a nuance, a kind of a marginal thing that can make an important difference, that an AI is the kind of mistake it's going to make. So this is a pretty savvy crowd. You know how the AI thing works. It takes libraries, basically, of information. You shove information into the top of the wood chipper, and it looks for patterns in that data. And there's, the New York Times quite rightly wants to protect or get money from its information, its archives going back to the 1850s, that they're training LLMs on, large language learning models. I don't know why it's large language. It's a large collection of sentences, of thoughts that they're capturing and looking for patterns in it. Another thing, apart from the AI, that this crowd, I'm sure, is very interested in, and you should have a speaker on that, is the physical impact, the energy impact of that. Is these server farms that they're building all over the country to process their large language models, it sucks up an immense amount of energy, and it doesn't. And that's an environmental impact, but it's also an economic impact, because it's taking community resources, but typically, I don't care if you're building an auto plant or a prison or something, it provides jobs. These things aren't providing very many jobs at all. I mean, you might have a security guard walking around, and a couple IT guys, but that's about it. So the physical impact's bad. The information space, there's pros and cons. Employment impact is unknown. A lot of people are going to get laid off because their sales work or their data processing work is going to get taken over. Now they're discovering that this software can write software, and all these people have said, "Oh, learn to code." Yeah, sorry, you're out of luck because AI is going to do it. But then they're going to need people to manage that enhanced productivity, and there is enhanced productivity out of it. 2007, there were 360,000 newspaper jobs. Now there are 80,000. 80% loss. The complexity of what's trying to do it's not going to be able to do it. There was a recent study where they mapped 1 millimeter of the human brain, and took 10 years, 57,000 cells, 150 million synapses, and the information that Harvard and Google collected in their study, 1.4 petabytes of raw data. I don't even know what a petabyte is, but it's so it's 1.4 million gigabytes.
Yeah.
From a speck smaller than a grain of rice, millimeter. Whole brain is 1 million times larger than that. Mapping the whole thing at that resolution would produce 1.4 zettabytes of data. Oh, now you're just making stuff up. That's roughly equal, and this is, to give credit, this is a Business Today article. That's roughly equal to all the data generated on Earth in a single year. It's in one brain. The storage, this is where we get brass tacks. The storage would cost an estimated $50 billion and require a 140-acre data center, which would be the largest on the planet currently. This article says it's a paradox at the heart of modern AI development. Today's neural networks are inspired by the brain, yet researchers cannot fully decode the wiring of even a microscopic portion of the biological system they aim to emulate. So they're doing it in broad strokes. AI models run on vast computing clusters while the human brain operates on about 20 watts of power. Yep. There's a fun fact. 20-watt bulb. Okay. In the withering away of the press, and I'm going to read a little bit from Jim Boren. He used to be the editor of the Fresno Bee, which was part of McClatchy, the Bee's Sacramento Bee, Fresno Bee. And I worked with the San Luis Obispo Tribune. I was actually editing the weekly in Cambrian, and so I was a co-worker with Jim. He was over in Fresno, but he retired, and now he's in education, doing being a professor. But my old boss in San Luis, when they cut back there, he got transferred to Fresno as the opinion editor. Well, about a month ago, he was laid off because
attention, please. Library will be closing in 30 minutes. Restrooms will be closing in 15 minutes. To repeat, library will be closing in 30 minutes.
Now, see how important information is? I was told ahead of time that that's going to happen. So I'm not. So information helps. They decided they could do the opinion section for the Fresno Bee out of Sacramento. So there's no more local, well, they'll do some local stuff, but there's no more people working there in Fresno that are writing that opinion things and managing it and going out and seeing people and talking to people. and building the trust and the granular knowledge of the community. And this is was one of the premier news organizations in the country. So that's very sad to hear. But Jim is still fighting the good fight. False and misleading stories and other questionable internet content can help shape public opinion, influence elections, and deepen divisions within communities. You can't reach common ground if you don't have agreement about the facts you're discussing. That's a big part of why America feels so divided. Each side picks its own facts and stays within its own information bubble. AI has made it a lot easier for misinformation to spread online. People can use AI to create fake photos, videos, and news stories that look totally real. Makes it very hard to tell what's true and what's not. And they can target people by playing on their beliefs and emotions. But AI isn't all bad news. It can also help stop misinformation. Some AI tools can now spot fake or edited content, fact-check stories, and flag posts that might be misleading before they go viral. We're going to need to stay alert, Jim says. So more about the tidings. When I was with the tidings, I set up a Google alert, which is kind of an AI tool in retrospect. And I don't know how many of you use that. If you ever search for something, at some point they start offering you the chance to make that automatic. And when you're running a newspaper, as I was, it'd be of interest to see if somebody's quoting it or where else it pops up online. So I did a National Daily Tidings thing. I did an Oregon Shakespeare Festival automated alert, and probably a couple others too. But my own name. You want to know what people are saying about you. So the Ashland Tidings shuts down. We started having conversations about starting Ashland.news in spring of 2021. The Tidings was a shadow of its former self. I got laid off in 2019 along with 3 other people because they were kind of shedding staff to save money while the Mail Tribune got flown straight into the ground. And at some point in 2021, it became an edition, quote unquote, edition of the Mail Tribune. And then it went away altogether that fall. And then we launched the Ashland.news in January 2022. And later that year, I think it was late that year, I started getting alerts for Ashland Daily Tidings. I thought that was weird. And I'd go to the site and they'd have this article. And pretty soon I caught on that they were taking our articles at Ashland News and others, the Oregonian, OPB, JPR, and they'd run them through the AI thing and then put them on their website and get some traffic. And they would have a byline on it. And some of these people I knew, and I emailed and it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't pursue it beyond that, but one day I got a call from Ryan House of OPB, Oregon Public Broadcasting, and he said, I'm working on this story about this AI slop, that's what they call it, site that's using the Ashland Tidings name. And so I talked to Ryan, and he did a story and did a lot of research, and it was an excellent story. He was never able to track down who was actually doing it, and he talked to the attorneys for the former owner of the Mail Tribune, who had every right to sue because he hadn't sold I figured he'd sold the Tidings URL. He hadn't done that, but and the lawyer said, you'll never find these people, they're in China or somewhere. And what they do is we're in an age where we're the product, our attention is the product. Because by selling our attention, they can sell consumer goods or whatever and make money. And so whatever they can do to get your attention, shiny object, they'll do that. And if they can do it cheaper than they can, it costs less than they can get in revenue, then they'll do it. And that was what was going on with the Tidings. Ryan talked to the people at Google too, fortunately, and they did whatever Google secret sauce they do to download the results. And now the Ashland Tidings hardly shows up anymore. And I rarely get alerts. I still get an occasional one, so they're still around, but they're not doing the business they had because Google won't let them, which is good for Google. Two of the writers on the Tidings website were actually correspondents for the London Daily Mail, and they were putting their bylines on the Ashland Tidings things. ProPublica did a story about the Oregon wildfire maps. Now, I remember 2 or 3 years ago, they did what totally makes sense, is to say, you know, Oregon's at risk for wildfire. Let's do a map that shows what areas are at risk. And so passed the legislature, funded it, did the maps, and then at the same time the map came out, everybody's insurance rates went up, and everybody's understandably going, it's because of the stupid map that my insurance rates go up. Well, not really. And here's a little bit of the ProPublica article. This is how misinformation gets accepted as fact. In this, maybe there's some AI involved. It's as much social media as it is AI in this instance. A year after Oregon endures its most destructive fire season on record in 2020, Alberta fire year and others, state lawmakers order a map estimating wildfire risk for every property. Around the same time, insurance companies start dropping Oregon homeowners policies and raising premiums. Some brokers tell homeowners the blame lies with the map the state produced. The belief gets treated as fact both on social media and in mainstream news, although insurers and regulators say it's not true. And the anger spreads. One conservative talk radio show host calls it an attempt to depopulate rural areas. Conspiracy theory there. People in an anti-map Facebook group start musing about Agenda 21. Maybe the United Nations is behind it. To force people into cities where they can be more easily controlled. So the state pulls back the map, starts over, and they even made it illegal for the insurance companies to use the map to set rates. So you can't do what they're saying happened. And still, after several years of struggle, they killed the map. And one of these people says the tragedy of it was that it was 100% based on misinformation. There's a website called 404 Media, which is kind of ironic. The 404 is an error message, the page can't be loaded. And they write about online media. And they're quite good. I recommend 404 Media. And they realized when they had their website up and going that if they didn't have a registration thing, not a paywall necessarily, but at least a registration thing, that web scrapers would come through and harvest their content and use it to whatever ends. So Jason Kobler, 404 Media, we have tried to set our website up to block ChatGPT from scraping us, although it's clear this is not always working. New research from the internet infrastructure company Cloudflare suggests that OpenAI is crawling 1,500 individual web pages for every one visitor that is sending to a website. Google traffic has begun to dry up as both Google's own AI snippets and AI-powered SEO spam have obliterated the business model of many media websites. More about what's going on in journalism. There's there's a big kerfuffle on X, formerly Twitter, in recent days. Evidently, some journalism graduate had applied for a job with a major Ohio news organization. I don't know if this was the Cleveland Plain Dealer or what, but the editor of a major Ohio news organization says they have removed writing from certain reporters' workloads. Reporters collect facts, and an AI rewrite specialist writes the article. Now, this job applicant decided she didn't want to have anything to do with that, understandably. But the editor there is defending it. I think it is Plain Dealer. The article is then reviewed by editors and reporters before publication. And they're doing this to save money. They're stretching the staff. So the staff goes out. AI can't go out and do the man in the street interview. So they do that, and they get back and they can put their tape in AI, and then it can write the story. I'm going to read more from 404 Media because I think this is pretty good. AI is changing the internet and is threatening journalists and media outlets. But the only AI-related business strategy that makes any sense whatsoever is one where media companies and journalists go to great pains to show their audience they are human beings and the work they are doing is worth supporting because it's human work that is vital to their audiences. This is something GQ, used to be Gentleman's Quarterly, I think, editorial director Will Welch recently told the New York Magazine. The good news for any digital publisher is that the new game we all have to play is also a sustainable one. You have to build a direct relationship with your core readers. I think that's what we're going to keep going back to, is that you need to know your source, to have trust, I would say posted policies, familiarity experience. It's almost like machine learning, except it's real learning. Okay, 404 Media again. Last year, Hearst newspaper executives, who operate 78 newspapers nationwide, told the company in an all-hands meeting audio obtained by 404 Media that they were leaning into AI as Hearst overall, the entire corporation. Examples given in the meeting included using AI for slide decks, a quiz generation tool for readers, it's clickbait stuff, translations, a tool called Dispatch, which is an email summarization tool, and a tool called Assembly, which is basically a public meeting monitor, transcriber, and summarizer all in one. What it does is it goes into publicly posted meetings videos online, transcribes them automatically, and automatically alerts journalists through Slack about what's going on and links to the transcript. Still 404 Media. We trade good, accurate, interesting human articles for money and attention. The risks of offloading that trust to an AI in a careless way is the biggest possible risk factor that we could have as a business. Having an article go out where someone says, actually, a robot wrote this, is one of the worst possible things that could ever happen to us. And so we, at 404 Media, have made the brave things that could ever happen to us. So we have made the brave decision to not do that. I thought it would be good to share what the AP guidance was on how to identify, label AI content. And I was somewhat surprised and pleased to see that they don't even address it. The assumption.
Attention, please. Library will be closing in 15 minutes. I repeat, the library will be closing in 15 minutes.
The assumption is you're not doing that, so that's good for AP. They give a lot of advice on what AI stories should talk about, which is to say what AI is, how they get their inputs, what kind of outputs they generate. And that's important whether the tool, there's so many different things that AI is used for, whether it's self-driving cars, to facilitate speech recognition, generate written text, or a chatbot, or any other use. And if you're writing about AI, you should be talking about that so people know what AI is and how it works. And it gives you some tips. AI identifies patterns in large volumes of data, makes predictions. It's like autocomplete on a huge scale. What's the next word in your text message or your email? This is coming. There's now, I noticed on Newsbreak, which uses, it picks up some Ashland.news items, so I'm happy about Newsbreak in that way because it distributes our content for a wider audience. It does the headline, you click on that and it sends us to our website, so we get the traffic there. So fine, good for Newsbreak. They've also started publishing things that are kind of like a police log, and I'm sure they're AI content generated. They don't have a reporter in Ashland, they're not doing that. And so there's these online reports, and the other thing they're doing, which is really interesting, is listening to the scanner traffic. So you've got this computer listening to the scanners and transcribing it. I'm looking at my phone because I've downloaded an app that uses this stuff. I probably shouldn't be telling you this because it's competition for us. But Crime Radar, all one word, transcribes scanner traffic and puts it in words and instead of audio. And most of it, welfare check at Ashland home with breathing issues. I mean, this is one of those, if you ever listen to the scanner, like Alan here, you all day long you hear these things, and 90% of the fire department calls are health related. So it's got all that, the shaft that we would call it as an editor. But it was also useful with the tragic accident on early Sunday morning outside Ashland where 2 people died. It had that in there, and it had the call and the rollover and all that. There was another one going back a week ago yesterday, on Monday. There was a tree fell on somebody, and they had that, and the gentleman's alive and in the hospital and hopefully recovering. But at the time, the AI picked up, has a pulse, being loaded in the Bercy flights. And that was all something that the eyes and ears of that computer made more accessible. So, friend or foe, there are some good things to it. I think I don't know how my phone died. I watched it. I'm going to wrap up this part, and I hope there's some questions and discussion. But the New York Times published an interview with Michael Pollan the other day, who is a great thinker and writer about food and a lot of other things, and wrote a book about psychedelics not long ago. Now he wrote one about consciousness, and he talks about AI a little bit. I'll read this. It's just 2 paragraphs here. He's talking mostly about consciousness. And we know AI is not conscious, but hey, I was a philosophy major. I wasn't a journalism philosopher. I was supposed to go to law school and stuff, but decided not. Didn't want to be a lawyer. And of course, I took classes in epistemology, knowledge, and how you know things, and that's been invaluable in a journalism career. And skepticism, questioning things, again, invaluable in a journalism career. We also talked about these things, like how do you know that you're thinking? You get into the cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am kind of argument. And Pollan wanders around that area a lot. But so if you think feelings are at the center of consciousness, it's very hard to imagine how a machine could rise to that level to have feelings. The other reason I think we're not close to it is that everything that machines know, the data set on which they're trained, is information on the internet. They don't have friction with nature. They don't have friction with us. Some of the most important things we know are about person-to-person contact and contact with nature. This friction that really makes us human. We want them, AI, to be conscious in some way, or some of us do. It's easier to have a relationship with a chatbot than another human. Going back to that friction point, they, AI, offer no friction. They just suck up to us and convince us how brilliant we are, and we fall for it. So, don't fall for AI. Questions?
So I want to make a couple comments. So first of all, my first job out of high school was as a copy boy, where I went in at 4 o'clock in the morning. The teletype machines were, banging away. At that point, they were moving to computerized systems, and so I saw the demise of cut and paste journalism. So I know what you're talking about. My second job was working for an AI company, and I have been a proponent of AI for like 40 years now. I use it every day. To your point about misinformation, disinformation, if you ask the question, the programs are designed to support your questions. And so it will always, as you say, suck up to you. And so what you have to do is frame your prompts in a way that you challenge the AI, and that they will usually give you sources, and you have to check the sources. We just did a talk in Grants Pass on AI and the coming collapse, basically. Because there's a new system, and I just did this last night. I cloned my voice, I created an AI robot, had the robot call my wife and have a discussion for 5 minutes. I recorded it and then went into the house and showed it to her, and she about died.
Oh my God.
So I have another robot that does everything for me at 7:30 in the morning. So I think there's a lot of utility on the job side. Thinking jobs are going away because the AI can think faster. I use it for all my grant writing now. But there are also filters that you can use, like undetectable. It's an application you can get that will tell you what percentage of what you have is AI. And it's really good because whenever I use AI to write something, I have to take what it's written and rewrite it to avoid those filters. So I think it's a huge plus for us. We've already discovered 200 million proteins that we did not know about. It's coming up with energy solutions that will give us zero cost energy. It's these things that give us the post-scarcity future. But the problem is we've got guys like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg who don't give a toss about people. You get guys like Peter Thiel who, when asked if he wants to see human civilization go away, he couldn't answer it. So, I mean, there's definitely an evil side to this, and it's all what you do with it. It's just a tool.
I was just getting the mic over there.
What's that?
I think about it like I love popcorn. You get a big bowl of popcorn and it's like 98. If somebody told you 98% of that's fine, and there's 2 pieces of popcorn in there that's going to break your tooth, it's like maybe I'm not so hungry. I have very serious concern with, depending on what the content is, relying on AI.
One thing you said about 10 minutes ago was some big organization that was considering coming out with a piece on how you can detect AI, how you can tell whether something is AI, and then they decided not to. Did you say that? Was that misinformation?
I thought it said, my recollection is that it said that those things exist. And I know they used to be plagiarism finders, now they're AI finders for teachers and professors.
Yeah, I was wondering about the back and forth between AI getting better at outsmarting humans and humans saying, here's how you can tell when you're being outsmarted. I mean, and that becomes more data for the AI. So anyway,
It's a no
if
choice.
that's not what you said, whatever you said, great.
So I find artificial intelligence to be dangerous and very, very disturbing. And I find it fascinating how people embraced it originally as a novelty of sorts. But I find it probably the most dangerous threat to democracy, and the threat to creativity and individual thinking. It just blows me away that it's become so popular. I teach a course in current events through the OLLI program through SOU. So it's tough enough to evaluate bias and spin. And then artificial intelligence comes along, and now the veracity and accuracy and legitimacy of everything is in question. Fake videos, fake news. So it's a complete game changer. You gotta have people in my class that say, oh, gee, I use ChatGPT or I create term papers using it, and I find it just extremely dangerous, and I think it is the advent of an era, the dumbing down of America, truly. And I think, again, it's being treated as a novelty, and people are using it for medical use and potentially to write a paper. Professors are using it to grade papers. So it's a real slippery slope. And I think 5 years from now, we're going to rue the day when artificial intelligence hit the scene. So obviously, I'm a huge detractor, but the genie is out of the bottle, and there's nothing I can do about it. So those are my comments in support of artificial intelligence, or lack of. Thank you.
We're in a massive age of deregulation, and that's the main concern at this point. My question to you as a local journalist, I'm concerned that local news is going to allow certain special interests to override the community benefit. An example is of the hospital systems here, and there are huge lawsuits. I mean, and they're cutting staff now. No discussion about whether those lawsuits are impacting their ability to provide medical services within this area. But as a journalist, is the community going to have to come responsible for providing accurate news to the public, because the business models no longer work in most cases? I mean, even the Washington Post has cut huge amounts of journalists. So what is the future for journalism, especially in smaller communities, to address the needs? I mean, corruption in a local sense could become rampant if there's not a check on those kinds of things. Thank you.
That's a great question. Yeah, the old model is broken, and there's the Ashland.news is part of this. There's a great upwelling of nonprofit news organizations, and it's basically the public radio model, because for 50 years or more, they've been supported largely by the public that they serve. Some government money, a fraction of what they use to operate, and I've been doing this since 1982, and this is the second time, because the Applegator was a nonprofit. And I was so blessed, one door closes, another one opens. I was so blessed to work for the Applegator, because that was my introduction to nonprofit news. Because that was a nonprofit, originally with the Watershed Council out there in the early 90s, and then it didn't align with their, for a while they were doing the Applegator, and then in like 2008,
The time at 7 p.m. the library is now closed.
They were going to shut it down. And the community...
I repeat, the library is now closed.
Mind the gap. The community rose up, and I wasn't around, well, maybe you remember, but the community rose up and founded the Applegator as a nonprofit organization and kept publishing. So the Applegator recently celebrated its 30th, no, it's more than that, 35 years in operation, and it's run by a board of directors. It's supported by donations. Applicator is about 30% from sponsorships from ads. The COVID year of 2020, when I came on board, COVID shut down. You know, it was about a third sponsorships, a third donors, and a third fundraising things. COVID shut down the fundraising thing. We were trying to figure out, the treasurer's going, we're going to shut it down. We better, save some money to wind it down. And I found the Institute for Nonprofit News and applied, and we joined that. And they had a program called News Match, which is a fundraising thing. And at that time, I think there were still under 200 members. By the time Ashland.news joined, it was like almost 400. Now it's approaching 500 members. So this is going on nationwide, and people are starting these nonprofits. And I don't work I work for single proprietor, which can be horrible or great, and I've had both. Or you can work for a corporation, which at least it's the bottom line thing. So they're sane and rational, which is not what you can say for all owners. But there's still, what's driving it at the end of the day is coming out in the black, making money. But with the nonprofit, though, profit's not an issue. You need to bring in enough money to accomplish your mission, and your bosses are the donors basically that fund the thing through a board of directors that's dedicated to the mission statement. And so I'm happier working for Ashland.news than any other group that I've worked for before. And it's a great feeling, because journalists are historically underpaid, and they do it because they love the work and they love serving the community and finding out stuff. They're curious and they want to share and hopefully be the first one to share it and get a scoop. But that works a lot better under the nonprofit model. Our friends at Rogue Valley Times they've got the sort of Damocles over their head, because Carpenter Media, which is an outfit out of Missouri or something, could decide one day they're down to one reporter, one news reporter. They've got a sports guy, they've got an editor, and they've got one reporter. And there's a features reporter too, and a features editor. But how is one person supposed to cover the Rogue Valley, or even Jackson County? It's good that we're sharing things, because you want to be efficient with your resources, and we're all trying to serve the community.
I have an observation and a question. And the observation is that right now, the AI that I've encountered in some web searches is really naive. So I'm trying to calculate the impact of carbon dioxide on the temperature of the atmosphere from first principles. And it is amazing how, when I search for something like the absorptivity of carbon dioxide, how it is, the AI searches, Google search, all of them, they don't discriminate about who they cite. And so, it'll cite some bozo on Facebook as often as it's going to cite a paper in Physical Review. So, it's just lame. That probably won't last for very long. It came about through data analysis and trying to find signals in large backgrounds. And that's, is a big problem in mathematics. It's a really, really interesting problem. And neural nets provided a way to do it that you could reverse engineer to actually find out what it's doing. But now large language models, which, every AI algorithm does one thing. It maximizes figure of merit. And so the programmers decide what the figure of merit is, and it's going to be some function of many variables. And so large language models, like you said, you alluded to, that what they really do is calculate the highest probability of what the next word will be in text. And it's kind of amazing how that single figure of merit can lead to some, it passes the Turing test. You can talk to a language model and be convinced it's another person, you know, except that they don't get offended enough when you really get on their case. That's kind of a giveaway. But anyway, my question is proofreading. You know, why not? Why not? It's, you know, for spelling, for usage, for flagging usage and grammar, so that I can begin to use words like lay, lie, and lay without having to worry about trying to figure them out later. So you just avoiding them. Yeah, you lean back. I know that's right. You know, so why not for that? And for that matter, how else are you going to do self-driving cars? And they're bound to be better than people.
Yeah. Boy, there's a lot there.
Sticking with proofreading.
That's interesting. Now that you mention it, it's the AI. A lot of it comes across like an eager sophomore who's really probably pretty good, but kind of not that sophisticated. The automated driving. There was a thing. Was it a day or 2 days ago where this one of the financial analysis companies did this thing. They were thinking that this is a world of AI 2 years from now, and they said that everybody's been laid off. And it's not funny, but they crashed the DoorDash stock price. It was down at 16% or something, because they said there was these issues with the AI delivering your groceries, whatever. I'm not capturing it all, but the point, I guess, to take from that is that there's great uncertainty of exactly how the fallout's going to come from AI. We could ask AI.
I want to talk about something a little bit different that you alluded to earlier. That you talked about your education as a philosophy major, and I feel like I was lucky to have some professors that taught me how to think, taught me how to discern and be skeptical. I want to ask, why are we so anti-intellectual? Why are we so anti-education? Is there a path forward? Because I see a lot of AI. I see from some liberal friends, I see stuff that I don't trust. How do we discern that? And I would propose that long term, there's got to be some investment in education and in critical thinking, not just arts education, which actually helps in critical thinking to a certain extent. But do you have a comment on that?
It's like you were saying. It's a tool. It's a great power thing, and it's going to amplify the character of the person using it. It's like that's where you get the Elon Musk thing saying that, you know, I'm a Nazi or whatever it's saying. I lost the thread there, but
well, I was thinking on the way over here, the word gullible and what that means. And I remember the first time I went to Australia, I was shocked at how people thought Americans were gullible, and I thought that they were right.
Yeah.
And how do we become less gullible? How do we become more discerning? You know, that's maybe it's a rhetorical question.
No, that's good. It's maybe get the mic to Kent there, but I think it has to the appeal to our tribal instincts, and that's what a lot of the algorithms are designed to get the juices flowing in us, literally, that keep us scrolling on a website and kind of hating the other. I mean, this is a societal thing. I don't know how much of it is really a rational thing, but it's like Lincoln said, we need something to appeal to our better instincts, our angels of our better nature, and that's not happening. It's the current national leadership is more about division. It's more about fixing the blame than fixing the problem.
My name's Kent. It's the first time I've been to one of your meetings here. I've lived in Ashland for quite a while. I work as a photojournalist, and mostly video, and work nationally and internationally. I get to live here in Southern Oregon, so thank you for that. In addition to doing photojournalism and work a lot in long-form documentary formats, worked for the networks as a stringer, worked freelance, and have also done a lot of work in public communications, public affairs in both the private and public sector. So I've worked as a producer of content, and I have to say that with online media right now, there's just this great thirst for content, not only online, but in traditional broadcast. So in looking at the title, Recognizing Misinformation and Disinformation, it reminds me of when I went to film school many decades ago, took a documentary film class. And the instructor, she pointed out that we need to use discernment. You mentioned that word, so thank you for bringing that up. And all of the tools that we have available to us, but particularly, our minds, awareness of what's going on, awareness that there can be misinformation and disinformation, but ultimately it comes to each of us individually to use discernment, to not be gullible, to, if you will, be somewhat skeptical about everything that we're bringing into us. If you look at, human interpersonal communications, whenever we're contacting, almost not all the time, but I think it's a human characteristic that we want to put our best foot and best first impression out there. So we tend to market ourselves, our beliefs, and many times we will not include all the information or maybe kind of twist things a little bit. So all of you think about the way that you can communicate with other people. Are we always transparent and open? I'd venture to say that 100% of the people here can't say yes, we are, because we're influenced by our biases, our environment, our upbringing, where we're getting our news and information from. I personally try to listen to news from all over the world in different languages, and find that that's very important to be informed, but it's a challenge. And I don't know that there's 100% foolproof method of being able to totally recognize misinformation and disinformation right now. In terms of AI, so you two gentlemen here, I used to be of your mindset about, resisting AI, but in just the last 3 years, I've embraced it in the work that I do, in the research that I do, understanding what the limitations are, understanding how important the prompts are, the questions, which give guidance to that, and continually trying to refine the answers that come back, checking the references, the citations that are, I've always found listed somewhere on most AI systems that are out there. But it's made my job a lot easier, particularly with when writing news articles. The proofing, making sure that news releases that I author fit the particular style guides that I'm writing for. It's very, very helpful. Lay, all those things, extremely helpful. But just one last comment, and I'm going to kind of push back on professional journalism right now. When I'm working and doing public affairs for governmental agencies, I'll go out and gather a lot of information, write up a press release, provide photos, provide video, and then we'll disseminate this information out nationally. And years ago when I did this, I'd get calls from an editor or a journalist at various publications. I get zero feedback now. And I'm continually surprised at, say, the television anchors, the newsreaders. I sent out an article, and they read it verbatim using the photographs and video imagery. No one has called me to verify sources, where did I get this information and such. And I say, well over 95% of the time, it seems like that the journalists and journalism purveyors are so under deadlines that they'll just take things in and just republish them.
There's too few of them.
Yeah, can you address that in terms of maybe the press releases and not vetting?
Yeah.
Journalists aren't vetting things, and consumers aren't vetting. So how do you fix that?
Yeah. I think it's the time crunch, and it depends on the issue. One thing I've tried to do, every paper or news organization I've worked for, they get a press release and they edit the press release slightly for style, and then they print it and they put staff report it. When the staff had almost nothing to do with it. And I think I've given it a fight. I for a while I was just putting, Sierra Club or whatever it was on there, or I don't think we ever ran one from the Sierra Club, but the Sore Optimists or whatever, because it's community paper, and it's fine. They're not selling anything. They're a nonprofit, and what we still do is on the bottom we got the source. If it's just from a press release, we put the damn press release, the link to the press release on it. So at least we're being honest about it. And I would differentiate, that's in a different lane than some police action or some city council action. Those, you got to make that call and find out what they're saying is true or what it means, or, So we're still trying to do it. It's a matter of resources, time, and being able to get to it.
I'm going to see if my microphone is working. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, thanks very much indeed. I didn't realize we were I didn't realize we were going to get into artificial intelligence. I just wish that grammar checker knew whether "it's" should have an apostrophe. It might do affect and effect, it might do lay and lay, but it can't figure out whether "it's" has an apostrophe. Always does it wrong. I didn't realize, I spent a lot of time on this issue that Bert was talking about earlier on with the wildfire maps. I didn't realize, in addition to being critical of people who were just purveying bullshit, I had to worry about the extent to which artificial intelligence was invading the arena. I didn't even think about that. So I guess I should thank you for alerting me to artificial intelligence. What we're going to do now is move on to the phase where we look at what SOCAN is doing and what is happening in the climate arena around the Rural Valley, and Kathy is going to do that for you.
Thank you very much, Bert. And how about another round of applause? So just a few minutes of what SOCAN is doing and what's coming up. The March general meeting, the last Tuesday of the month, Mel Martin is going to be here and talking about OSERA. Somebody didn't put what OSERA means. Oregon
Coalition for Environmental Rights Amendment.
Oregon Coalition for Environmental Rights Amendment. She's going to be here. This is the kickoff to a tour around the state to get information from people in different parts, and they're starting in Southern Oregon. And so we're excited to be the first stop. We will have our monthly meeting with her doing the presentation. And then there'll be other places in the Rogue Valley where they'll do presentations. And that list is, if you look at the flyer in the back, it tells you the other locations that are going to be there, or go to our website or calendar and the information is there. We'd encourage you to follow us on social media. It's done by real people. And we would appreciate any help that you can give us by sharing posts and help us grow. The information on the right, if you're reading that quickly, is about the average number of days above 90 degrees Fahrenheit in the Medford area, starting at 1980 to 1990 at 54.8, coming up to the current at 74.5. If you have people who are deniers, there's a piece of information they might understand. Things that are coming up, one of our main projects for advocacy is a federal and state project, with the legislative session being active right now. That group is very active. Currently, the volunteers in that group have submitted 30 pieces of written testimony and 6 oral comments. The legislature ends in March, so there's not much time left, but the group is still working hard. And that group will meet here, the second Monday of the month. So March 9th will be the next meeting. That'll be after the session, but that's open to anybody, and that one's on Zoom. And if you want to get a wrap-up of what happened and preparation for next year, you're welcome. Anybody's welcome to join those sessions. On SOCAN's webpage, this is SOCAN.eco. This is the front page. And there's a link then to the legislation that we're following. And just click on that and you'll be able to see updates on what's happening with that. If anybody's inclined to write testimony and aren't sure about information, you can contact Alan. He's sitting right here. He can give you his contact information and he'll help in any way that you want to get more testimony there. This is SOCAN's calendar, socan.eco/events, and we put all our main meetings on here if you want to know what's going on. If you're reading 2024, if you go to the current page, you'll see the current calendar. One group we have is called Sustaining Climate Activists. This group meets monthly. Anybody is welcome to join us. It's a support group for people working in climate change. And we always meet on the 4th Saturday, 10 to 11:30, and we're at the Talent Public Library. And again, on the calendar would have current information if you want to check that out. We like to encourage our partner organizations and for you to support them. Applegate All Things Fire Fair is happening this next Saturday, March 7th, 10 to 5 or 11 to 5:30. It's at the fire station Rouge, and obviously they're talking about fire things. There'll be lots of booths and lots of information if you're interested in that. KS Wild has their first Friday art show. It's on Friday, March 6th from 5 to 7, and this one's a little different. They're going to be doing some, you're supposed to bring a shirt, and they're going to do some interactive art night. It's with Talent Maker Center. That's what I was looking for. So you're encouraged to attend and bring a shirt and do something creative. Rogue Valley Voice is a partner that has an eco-spiritual calendar of different events that are happening. And if you're interested in that, it's roguevalleyvoice.com, and you can check that out. And we always encourage you to take action. It doesn't matter how many times you come and sit and listen. You need to take action. We all need to take action. And we need to talk to our friends about taking action. So go to our website, SOCAN.eco. If you want to send an email to get questions answered, info@SOCAN.eco. And we always encourage you, if you have the means, to donate. That's how we keep going. So there are quarter sheets in the back on the OSERA listening tour. That's our meeting next month if you want that. And said that, and I said that. I think I got it all. Thank you for being here. There's some people who are new, so if you're a regular and you see a face you don't know, please take a moment to thank them for coming. We appreciate all of you being here tonight, and thanks again for the presentation.